Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about equity in classroom engagement because we know that, for example, now there's this big initiative, ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, and previously we had No Child Left Behind. In America today and in many places across the world, we know that we can deliver a quality education to some students. We can get some students to succeed. We can get the students that we focus on to succeed. We know a lot about how children develop, how children learn. There's a lot that we can do for them. The challenge is in getting all of them on board. The challenge is getting them all to succeed. And very often, we struggle with equity issues, and sometimes it's based on biases that are blatant, whether it's racial bias or learning ability bias or economic bias. But sometimes you can have a classroom, and often you will have a classroom, even if you have a purely homogeneous classroom. So let's say you have an entire classroom of the same race or the same economic, socioeconomic position. You'll still have some kids that are slipping through the cracks, some kids that are falling behind. And what can be done about this? So, small classrooms help, assistant teachers help, but those are expensive solutions and they're very, very difficult. And one of the things that I was noticing as a social worker when I was working in schools that were struggling, losing students, one of the things that I noticed was we need to have a better system to take care of, to make sure that every single student is seen in the classroom. So I remember even once talking with a certain principal who was telling me that there was research done, and I never really followed up on this to see the actual research, but that there was research that was done that in a classroom, in the traditional classroom setting where you had the rows and columns of how kids were set up, it was actually the diamond shape. The teacher standing at the front of the room would see in the front of the room at the center, and then it would branch out towards the middle of the room and then come back to the center in the back of the room. So, and the kids that were on the periphery of that were very often neglected. So let me share with you the ClasStars screen. And by now you know a little bit about how ClasStars works, but I just want to bring out this perspective. And I think that this is important. Okay, when you start a class with ClasStars, let's start up and we're going to title this class Equity in the Classroom. Okay, that's what we're going to call this session because this is what we want to talk about today. So we're going to start the class and we will take attendance as we always do when we start a class. We'll mark a couple of kids absent just for demonstration purposes. So here we go. We got the students. We're coming into class, and let's just say that let's pick 3 students to be absent. Just to keep it simple, we'll start here. We'll take Colin, Kennard, and Jocelyn, okay, are absent. So maybe one of them has a chronic absence problem and they're often absent. And again, that would show up in the attendance class-wide dashboard. You would see kids that are absent a lot, would jump out at you. So this way they're brought to your attention. Let's end attendance and we're gonna go to class. Okay, so we end attendance, we hit the go to class button, and now we're going to class. So, as you could see, if you know a little bit about ClasStars, you know that there's a 2-day positive behavior meter that keeps the last 2 days of positive feedback. Everyone here is blank because we haven't been here in a couple of days. And we'll put it on single swipe mode to keep it really, really simple. And I want to make sure that I'm engaging every single student in the classroom. So I'm going to start off my class. I'm going to start engaging kids. I'm going to maybe even start off not talking about the lesson, but just having, how's everybody doing? It's COVID, everybody's struggling. We're all struggling in different ways. I'm gonna say, Lake, how you doing? You look like you're really ready for school today. Okay, some positive feedback there. Okay, then I'm gonna jump to the back corner of the room. Satara, how was the homework last night? Did you have a hard time with that? Okay, excellent. Wow, I'm so proud of you. You're doing really, really well. Okay, now notice how Satara's border color just changed to blue because she just crossed the threshold to a 5-to-1 positive feedback to negative feedback ratio. So that's really great. We've bumped her up to the next level. Okay, and I'm gonna go around the room. Kristen, and how you doing? Yeah, you did really, really well on your report. I just reviewed it last night and that's really, really great. Okay, so I gave positive feedback to a couple of kids and now I'm going to engage in the lesson. I'm going to start teaching the lesson, and maybe I have some bias against Jess. Maybe Jess has been giving me a really hard time the other day, or I remember having his older sister last year, and she was really, really difficult. So I've got a little bit of maybe a subconscious bias against Jess, and I'm not going to engage him, right? But I'm going to go around and I'm going to be engaging everybody else. Barat, Valentine, I'm giving everybody engagement. Okay, and now I want to do some formative assessment. I've given all these kids some positive, feedback. I'm going to give them formative assessment. So I'm going to select a quick quiz tool, and I'm going to now call on Adela because I want to make sure that I'm asking, I want to ask her a question. Okay, so actually goes first to Satara. So let me ask Satara a question. Okay, well, let's do simple multiplication tables, right? 3 times 5, and she answers it really, really well. Okay, Elijah, 12 times 8. He answers it really, really well. Barat, and I'm basically going around the room selecting kids. Now this, because I'm using this tool, is clearly going to make sure that I'm not biased against anybody, because I'm not even the one picking. So it's going to go to Stevie. Maybe Stevie gave a basic answer. So because I'm not the one that's actually selecting, I know that everybody's being gotten to. Everyone is getting to be engaged, and there is real equity in class engagement here. Okay, continue going through the room, and maybe I stop halfway through. I'm going to end the quick quiz. Okay, now again, remember, realize that we still haven't gotten to Jess. We still haven't gotten to Jess, or maybe it's not just Jess, but maybe it's Jess and Colin. So Colin came in a little bit late today, so we're going to mark him late now. Okay, and he's got that L, and that tells me that I haven't engaged him at all, because maybe I had specific designated times for engaging kids and Colin hasn't been engaged. So we're gonna be reminded to engage Colin because he's got that L. No, he's late, and you got to engage him. So I'm gonna make a priority to engage Colin. Okay, so let's give Colin some positive feedback, and let's open it up to full function mode. We could be comfortable here already. So we're gonna open it up to full function mode. And now I'm gonna make sure that I engage Bobby, and I'm gonna tell him, you know what, you did really something really, really nice for Dave. You lent him your pencil. So let's swipe up on Bobby and tell him that he did an act of kindness. So we recorded that, and I'm gonna even rate it on a 4 out of 5 stars. That's awesome. Okay, now let's make sure to get the front of the room. Darwin made a really good decision, so we can mark that off. Okay, Rafi Amar also doing really, really well, showing a great effort. Good job, Rafi. Franklin. Okay, so you see, I'm kind of going around and just ticking off the kids as I engage them. Now, you'll see, oops, missed that with Franklin. Okay, good self-control, Franklin. Now, you'll see that as I'm going through the class and I'm teaching and I'm taking off these things, at some point of the day, I take a look at this chart that I have right here in front of me. And I'm noticing that Marissa up here in the corner hasn't gotten any positive feedback. Jess hasn't gotten any positive feedback. Kennard and Jocelyn are absent, so it's understandable. Stevie and Elijah have gotten educational positive feedback. They were called on, so they have the yellow notch, but I haven't given them extra positive feedback, which is okay. If they've been engaged in the session, that's fine, but maybe I want to give them positive feedback if the context requires it. Davey hasn't gotten positive feedback. So now I'm going to make sure to prioritize these couple of kids. Let's prioritize. Let's make sure to, out of the gate, after lunch, we're going to give positive feedback to Marissa. We're going to give her some encouragement. I'm going to get to Jess. I'm going to give him some positive feedback and tell him that he's doing a good effort because I know that he hasn't gotten any, and Davey. Okay, so let's get to Davey. Let's give Davey some swipe ups here. Where's Davey's wheel? Oops, sorry about that. Okay, let's give Davey some encouragement. And now I know I can look through this class and everyone that's been here has gotten some kind of positive communication from me today. So the next step would be on the second round, because again, in a real classroom, this is a demonstration, but in a real classroom, there's gonna be someone, and maybe it's Bonnie, who's sitting right smack in the middle of the room, that she just somehow manages to always participate. She answers all the questions well. Her participation is very, very strong, and she's engaging more than everybody else. And I can see that. I can see that very quickly, that Bonnie is really dominating my attention in the classroom. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. I can't say in a vacuum. You need to know your classroom. You need to know whether that's good or bad, but at least you know, at least you can see Kristen is not getting as much. Satara is kind of in between. And again, Jess is kind of weak. So, you know, I want to maybe be extra conscious about Jess to give him the positive feedback. So this is how ClasStars really ensures equity in classroom engagement, making sure that those things are happening. Now, what about behavior problems, right? We've spoken about behavior problems. So, and we spoke about this the other day about how it works into the relationship. We're working on the ratio. If a kid is going to be called on, and let's say Lake has a behavior issue, right? We're going to swipe down on Lake. We're going to mark him off for talking. Okay, and he's getting a lot of negative swipes. He's getting a lot of swipe downs. His border color is going to be showing, you know, that kind of a ratio. If he has more negatives than positives, then it's going to be red. When it's neutral, you see these kids over here are neutral. So these kids really have to be prioritized because they're not getting enough positive feedback. Jess, who I may even acknowledge that I have some kind of a bias towards him, at least he's in the 3-to-1 or better, you know, color ratio. So he's got the yellow border. So we know that he's pretty good. It's Kristen that needs more encouragement to get into the right border color. So we're going to make sure that we give Kristen some swipe ups. Okay, so we're going to tell her that she's done good effort and maybe even give her a high rating, again, if it's warranted. So the behavior equity is so that it's not that you're only noticing the bad things that they're doing. You're forcing yourself to acknowledge positive things in kids that are misbehaving and keeping your communications with them in a positive ratio. Let's go ahead and take a look now at some of the charts. Okay, we're going to close the session. We're going to go check out some of the charts over here. And as soon as we get back into the dashboard screen, we can see that. Okay, here we are at the demo class. Again, we start off with the snapshot dashboard by default. That's always where we start. Okay, and let's select a nice date range. Let's look at all the sessions. Let's pull out the data from all of the sessions. I want to see how these kids are doing from the beginning of the year. So we're going to hit the all sessions button over there. And now you see it's nice and colorful. So the top two icons are going to show you, you know, here are green. That means that Satara is doing well. In attendance, she's doing poorly. And we're going to find out more about that in a minute. Green means they're doing well. Red means they're doing poorly. And yellow is that they're kind of, you know, in between. So the top one is for academic. That's the assessment, the formative assessment, when you ask questions and you mark how they did. The second one is behavior, and the third one is for attendance. So we know that Satara is doing poorly in attendance. Let's check out the attendance dashboard. Okay, now in attendance, just give it a second to pull up. Here we go. In attendance, we have a pie chart for every kid. The green is the present, the red is the absent, and the blue is missing class. And you could tell that she's leaving class a lot. That's not great. Okay, she's been out of the 41 classes. If you tap on the chart, you get this little pop out, 41 classes for a total of 34 hours and 23 minutes. She was present 38 times. She was absent 3 times. She left 18 times, totaling an hour and 50 minutes. So absent 3 times for 3 hours is kind of understandable. She was absent 3 days in 41 classes, but she's leaving a lot and she's missing a lot of time for class. And that's why her attendance button was no good. And if we want to drill down into her, let's drill down into Satara. You hit on these 3 dots, drill down into the individual dashboard, and here's where it gets a little bit laggy. It's going to come up momentarily. Again, all happens way, way faster when you're not broadcasting on Facebook or Zoom. Come up momentarily. Again, all happens. Yep, this really could take a long time. Here we go. So again, we're looking at the attendance dashboard for Satara Seema. And we have here a similar kind of pie chart, donut chart. There are 28 times that she was in. And here we've got different shades of blue, which are the times that she left the room. And you can see that across the top. You see here, she left the room here, she left the room here, she left the room a couple of times. Here, she left the room a lot. This is all no good. Okay, so you can pull in the timeline, pull in the date range to look at more specific times, but let's leave it at this. Okay, here we have a list of every single every single attendance event. We can scroll down here and see all the other events. Here's the filter button. We can filter what it is that we're looking at. Here we got a couple of excuse. So let's filter out all of the presents because, you know, present is great, but that's not the problem. That's not really what we want to look at. So we're going to tap on the present, cross out the I here. We're not going to be looking at all of the presents. We know about that. Those are fine. We're going to hit the done button because we're done filtering. And again, momentarily here, we're going to filter it out. Watch how now in this filtered records, we don't have any of the greens because we're not concerned about that. We're not looking at that. And here I have every single attendance event that is not just being present. This top donut chart remains untouched because that's the all records, all recorded records. And that's what I have going on over here. So I can see, and if I tap on the donut chart, I can see how many times Satara was absent, how many times were they excused, how many times was she late, how many late that were excused, how many times she left the room for the various different reasons, twice for student services, 5 for disciplinary, 4 for an errand, 2 for a 5-minute break, 3 times she was excused, and twice for medical attention. So I get a real clear breakdown of that, what's going on over there. When I tap away from the chart, it's going to do that. And I can pull out here the timeline chart, which again, the classes that she was just there from beginning to end have been filtered out. Now we're looking at just the days where she's been missing class. So we've got the blue where she's actually missed, and I can see that all of her misses are in the first half of the day. The classes start at 10, ends at 11, and the first half of the day she's missing a lot. The second half of the day she's there. She was obviously absent 3 times, but I can see really quickly that I've got to work on the first half of the day for her. And once I have that narrowed down, I have a much more focused task, and I can work on that, and that's much, much easier. All right, there's obviously a lot more to show here. Let's take a quick look at the behavior, just so that you can see how her behavior records are plotting out. Again, the timeline across the top is going to be the same. The filter system works the same. The list of events here is going to be the same. What's going to be, and the donut charts are going to be the same, exactly the same in behaviors and in attendance. What's going to be different, instead of the timeline, we're going to be having plotted out all of the different negative and positive and academic events that happen. So we can see here now, again, because the demo data is all here from 10 to 11, from 10 to 10:30. Let's just bring this in a little bit. Again, it takes a little bit of time with the lag from, okay, here, let's bring this in here. Okay, so we'll bring it back to August 29th. And again, like I said before, we have here the list of events. And as soon as this readjusts, you'll see how it populates all of the events. So this is starting from, about July 20th, all the way up through September 3rd. That's what we're looking at here, July 22nd through August 29th. And it's plotted along from the beginning of the day till the end of the day. You can see where the positive events are happening. You can tap on a button and it will actually bring you to that event. So you can see very clearly the misbehaviors. Here are, higher rated misbehaviors, things that are more concerned. If I tap on that, it'll bring me to that event, and I can put notes to the events. Right, you see verbal disruption on August 4th at 10:15 a.m. That's this one. And you can quickly jump to the different events that you're looking at. So very, very clear, very, very detailed information that you have, because we're collecting this detailed information. We can show it to you in very, very detailed ways. And that's really, really cool. So I'm glad that you were able to join us for this. I hope this was useful. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know in the comments, and we will continue this next time. Thanks for coming along. Take care.